This is Dharma Drops with your host, Rebecca Warfield. This podcast is a little bit about yoga, a little bit about life, and a little bit about whatever. And just as a warning, this podcast is unscripted, so that means I might regret a few things that I say. But hey, maybe I'll say some pretty awesome stuff too. Remember, these are musings, not truths. Buckle up, giddy up, because here we go. Oh, thank God you're here. Someone has got to get me away from those cookies in my kitchen. Look, there's nothing wrong with eating some cookies. I'm a fan of cookies. I had 2 for breakfast. I had 2 last night for dessert. But the problem is there's still more out there and I keep eating them 2 at a time, and I need something to pull me away from the cookies. So I'm really glad that we're here together for your mini episode of Dharma Drops podcast for April 1st. Happy freaking April Fool's Day. Wish I could tell you all this was a joke, but it's not, unfortunately. But I'm glad that we are here together, hanging out, not eating cookies for the moment. So here we are. It is Wednesday, April 1st, at least when you're listening to this, it is. I am recording a little bit late. It is Tuesday for me, March 31st, and I am just recording this episode at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It goes live in 11 hours and I'm just recording it because that's how life is going right now. In the beginning of this whole coronavirus business, I kept saying things were business as usual. And I'm trying really hard to keep things business as usual, but the needs of the Dharma Drops community and the needs of the world community are changing every single day. And so that means the way that I'm responding as a business owner and a podcast host and a yoga teacher and a blog writer, my response to that is changing every day too. So I saw this thing on Instagram. I think I reposted it in my stories last night that said, it's not business as usual. It's business as best as we can. So that's what we're doing here right now. We are doing this podcast as best as we can. And that means I'm doing it with some cookies and actually a cup of coffee too. Okay, I'm actually not eating cookies right now, but I'm probably going to eat one after this episode. Okay, so before we get into today's episode, just a couple updates. In the Dharma Drops world, we have lots of things going on. So just as I mentioned last week, we have live stream classes. There are some new additions to the live stream classes, including some kids classes with kids yoga teacher Sammy Hack. And what's really cool about this, after listening to the Mini Me Yoga episode of Dharma Drops podcast, which came out earlier in 2019, Sammy became registered as a Mini Me Yoga teacher because of what she learned from that episode. So it's really cool to see these things come full circle. But she is teaching live stream kids classes Tuesdays for ages 4 through 7 from 11 to 11:30, and Fridays kids ages 8 to 11, and that's also at 11 to 11:30. So it's really cool. It's something for your kids to do. It's something to give you a break from your children if you need it for 30 minutes, and some good exercise from them. On top of that, we have some new teachers coming. Addie Jo Bannerman, who was a Dharma Drops podcast guest, is teaching Prana Pump on Fridays at noon. And Noelle Whittington, who was a Dharma Drops podcast guest too, starting April 9th, will be teaching a class on the live stream platform. So lots of cool stuff happening. Those classes are only $5. If you are a healthcare worker, grocery store employee, delivery driver, or someone who is in financial distress, you can participate in Dharma Drops happenings at no charge. So if that is you, just let me know. Send me an email at rebecca@rebeccawarfield.com and we will get you set up with a pass for classes at no charge to you. It's the least we can do right now for those of you who are making our lives a whole lot easier and a whole lot safer as we deal with the COVID-19 crisis. One other thing I'm really excited to announce is that in addition to live stream classes, there is now a whole section of pre-recorded Dharma Drops classes for you to enjoy. You can check out the entire catalog of classes free for your first 7 days. Then after that, it's only $9.99 a month. Right now, there are, I think, 12 classes up there that range from full hour vinyasa classes, full hour restorative classes, 20-minute crow pose classes, little mini workshops for Warrior 2, meditations, mantra mini lessons, kids classes, the whole 9 yards. So you get unlimited access to those classes and new classes are added every single week. What I really like about the classes or the recorded classes on the membership site is they really speak to the heart of Dharma Drops and to the heart of yoga. I record them right out of my home in my living room right now because of the COVID-19 crisis. I can't go anywhere, but it's really how the yoga practice should be. We don't need anything fancy. We don't need anything special. We just need a space and our yoga mats and the ability to explore and experiment and a little guidance along the way. I'm really excited about this new offering. It's been really fun to film the classes and then to get some feedback on them. It's just a nice way for us to connect. So you can head over to dharmadropspodcast.com, then hover over virtual studio, and you'll see a little drop down that says recorded classes and membership. So you can go over there to join and get your first 7 days absolutely free, unlimited access to all of the classes. In terms of blogs, this week we are back up and running. Last week, everything was so hectic trying to get the virtual studio underway that the blogs had to take a back burner, but we are back. A new blog from Gabby Merides will be up either. If it's not up by the time you're listening to this, it will be very soon. We're just dealing with some back-end logistics stuff, but she has a self-care blog article that came out, which is timely because this is going to be a self-care episode. Tanya Nagel posted some really cool stuff about painting tutorials in case you're looking for things to do to keep you busy and to get creative during the shelter in place and quarantine duration. So you can check everything out at the Dharma Drops podcast blog. That's dharmadropspodcast.com, and then just click blog and bada bing, bada boom, you are there. So otherwise, in terms of things happening, that's about it right now. So we got live stream classes, new recorded classes on the Dharma Drops membership, and then some new blogs. So let's just get right into this episode. I think it's really important for us to talk about self-care. And I have talked a lot on this podcast about self-care, and that self-care isn't just things that are like bubble baths and Netflix. And I can be a little bit rigid about that and stringent about that sometimes. But I do believe there is a time and a place for the self-care. I like to call it the self-care that sucks, and the time for self-care that's a little more luxurious. And I think right now is a time for both. So in today's episode, I'm going to go over a few tips for things that I think can help us practice self-care during this really stressful time. It's hard to find space for self-care when we are wrapped up in the anxieties of everything that's happening with the coronavirus, when we're homeschooling children, when we're working from home, and basically the entire world as we know it has changed. But there are some things we can do that can help us function and feel better day to day. So the first thing that I want to mention is the blog post that Gabby Merides will be publishing on the Dharma Drops site soon. Again, as I mentioned, it's either going to be out by the time you're listening to this or it will be very soon. But the thing that she mentions about self-care in that blog post that I think is the most potent is that self-care is intentional. And that's the part I think that we have a tendency to forget is we're like, oh, I need to do something that's fun. I need to do something that's good for myself, that fills my cup. And then we just do something willy-nilly. So first and foremost, as you consider ways that you can practice self-care and listen to the tips along the way in this episode, I really want you to think about getting intentional with your self-care practices. What are they? How do they serve you? What do you want them to do? Because without intention, they're probably not going to be quite as powerful. I'm not saying that just chilling one day, just watching some Netflix and doing whatever isn't going to make you feel a little bit better. But if you do that with a little bit of intention, you might feel a whole lot better. So, number one, as Gabby says in her blog post, intention with self-care is the most important step. But along the way, as we set that intention, there are some things that we can do to help us feel better as we deal with the COVID-19 crisis. One of the things that I've heard people talk about the most the last 2 weeks is that there is zero routine. Every day just seems like a blur. It could be Monday, it could be Wednesday, it could be Friday, it could be March. Who knows? Maybe it's May. We have no idea. Setting a routine can really help you feel a little bit better. So one of the things that I've been trying to do, which gets a little bit hard because, again, everything's sort of blurring together. But one of the things that I've been trying to do is make sure that I wake up and I go to bed around the same time. I noticed that the first few days of social distancing and when I decided that it was no longer safe for me to actually go out very often, I was staying up really late and I was starting to sleep in a little bit later. Then I felt like the rest of my day was kind of all mixed up and funky. So I've been trying to go to bed at my regular time and wake up at my regular time. And I think this can just help us bring in a sense of normalcy. With that, I think it's also important to bring in some sort of rituals into your routine. Now, we talked a little bit on the podcast about morning rituals. In the recent episode with Pam Butts, she had the acupuncture and Chinese medicine episode. She talked about nighttime rituals. I don't think it actually matters when you do your ritual. I think it matters that you do it. So for me, my ritual has been sticking with my yoga practice. My ritual in the morning is always the same, and it's staying the same. So just because maybe you aren't getting up and going to work, or you aren't getting up and getting your kids ready for school, doesn't mean that your daily rituals can't change. Or maybe it means you need to add in some new rituals in the evenings to wind down, to settle in and prepare for bedtime. One thing that I mentioned in a blog post recently is that the rituals that worked for us, say pre-COVID-19, may or may not serve us well during COVID-19. So that's something just to think about. Don't be afraid to change up your rituals, to add in things that you need. Really take this space and honor that. In terms of also sticking with the routine, I've been working really hard to stick with a regular meal routine. My eating's actually been really off since the COVID-19 thing. Generally, when I wake up, I am starving and I need breakfast immediately. And I haven't actually felt that very much since this started. I'm not 100% sure why. So I actually have been backing off breakfast just because I feel like I haven't really been hungry or needed it, except those 2 chocolate chip cookies I had this morning, but that wasn't because I was hungry. It's because they were there. So maybe just don't keep cookies around. But in any case, I am trying to take a regular lunch break. I'm trying to stop work by 5:30, 6 o'clock so I can actually have a regular dinner time, those sorts of things. So especially if you're new to working at home, this will be really important for you. Stop what you're doing, move to a different room, eat your lunch, take a real lunch break, and then go back to your office space and get back to work. Stop your work at a regular time, go into your kitchen, make dinner, have a regular dinner at the table, and so on. That can really help bring back a sense of normalcy into our day-to-day right now. So there's probably lots of other ways that you can think of to build routine into your day. I know my friend Angela said the other day that she even built some routine into her schedule by the hour. So scheduled in times that she needed to get things done to really give herself some structure. So add in as much structure as you need to make yourself feel productive and sort of on track right now. It doesn't really feel good, I don't think, to be like, God, is it Wednesday? Is it Friday? Is it April yet? What is happening? That doesn't feel good to me. It makes me feel a little lost. It makes me feel less focused. And so bringing in routine can, for me at least, alleviate that. So another thing that I've been working on in terms of self-care is trying to eat really well. Now, the sort of undercurrent theme of this episode is apparently chocolate chip cookies because I've been crushing them. So it doesn't mean that I've been eating perfectly well, but I am trying to eat better. Partially because I've had the time and this space a little bit to eat better. Erin's here, so we can sort of share a little bit of those cooking responsibilities. We don't have much else to do, so we've been getting a little creative in the kitchen and doing stuff like that. But also, eating well helps our body's immune system fight off disease. So right now, as not just COVID-19, but also the flu is going around and every other bug that just circulates through communities on any given day, these things are spreading. Having a healthy diet can help our bodies fight that off. So giving your space to eat really well, it does for me. I do feel so much better if I have healthy, whole meals. And I know that sounds like basic information. And if you're listening to a yoga podcast, you probably already have some sense of a mindful diet. But right now, as our ability to go to the grocery store is limited and we might be stocking up on things like frozen food, it's a really good time for you to think about, okay, how can I get items that preserve well, but that are also really healthy and can keep me nourished? So the few times that we've gone to the grocery store, we've been getting fresh vegetables that last a long time. Things like carrots, broccoli, celery, onions, potatoes, those sorts of things. So we can have fresh food, but that doesn't go bad really quickly. So that way we just, we can space it out until we have to go to the store again or have something delivered again. It's a great time for you to experiment with new stuff in the kitchen, new recipes, just to check things out. So it's not just about eating well, it's also about getting creative in the kitchen as something to do too. We're stuck at home. We might as well make some pretty awesome stuff. My friend Christy Ray actually gave us a little bit of sourdough starter that, get this, it's 108 years old, which that's so cool. So we are going to experiment with making homemade sourdough bread. So again, giving yourself time to be in the kitchen, to eat well, it is good for our bodies to be nourished, but it's also a really good time for us just to do something fun. There's some cool YouTube cooking shows out there. You can learn to cook cook something new. I think one of the things I'm going to experiment with during this shelter in place in North Carolina for at least the next 30 days, I'm going to try to make some cashew brie. It's a vegan brie cheese, and you have to actually like mold it and age it and feed it and like do all this crazy shit to it. So it's just a good time for this stuff. Okay, so we got make a routine and eat well. And something that can help with both of those is daily exercise. There has been a lot of conversation on the news and on the internet right now about getting outside, getting some exercise, getting some sunshine. And yes, absolutely, that is correct. You will feel better with some gentle exercise. I'm not saying you have to do like the hardest workout of your entire life. A little bit of yoga, a walk, a light jog, a bike ride will definitely make you feel better. But what I actually like the most about getting some exercise right now is that it's helping me maintain a routine. I've been working it into my schedule every single day. And also when I exercise, I am more inclined to eat well. So for me, my exercise routine actually supports my other self-care habits and rituals, which is really important because we don't want exercise just to be another thing we have to work into our schedule, another thing we have to do that we don't want to do. It should really support everything that we're doing. I've been working really hard to stay consistent with a normal yoga practice because for me, I know that that sort of movement in the body, it really sets the stage for everything else in my life. Now for you, I don't know if yoga is what does it for you. Maybe you need to take a little hike. Maybe you need to go out and go for a jog, but do the exercise that really inspires you to eat healthy and the one that's not like pulling teeth to work into your daily schedule. If you're like, fuck, man, I gotta go for a run today, you are not gonna stick with that, and it is not gonna help you find any sense of normalcy during this time. So add in some exercise that really helps you feel nourished, that helps you feel inspired to eat healthy, that helps you feel inspired to try new things, that inspires you every single day. So that way, when you work it into your schedule, you're like, hell yeah, it's yoga time. There have been some awesome live stream opportunities all over the place. I've been taking classes with teachers from all over the country that I've always wanted to practice with, taking classes from teachers in North Carolina that I just don't get to see very often. And it really helps to be with a group of people. It's fun. It helps us build community. And in terms of building a schedule, those live stream classes are at a certain time, which means you're accountable to something that day. So you don't have to just sit on your couch and figure out what to do. You know, at 5 o'clock, I got to be online for my yoga class or for my workout. So I think that sort of accountability helps because also, especially if you're practicing or working out with your regular community online, they want to see you too. So it's really sweet to be able to exercise, to get inspired, to maintain routine, all while also building a little bit of connection too. So if you haven't tried any live stream classes out yet through your regular yoga studio or your regular gym, I would recommend it. It's really fun. I will say the other day, well, I guess it was a few days ago, I was taking a class with Thousand Petals online, and that's a yoga studio here in Chapel Hill, and they had a couple tech issues in the beginning, and I thought I wasn't going to be able to take class, and I felt really bummed. I was like, well, I guess I could do my own yoga practice, or I guess I could do a recorded class. But even though I knew the teacher couldn't see me, I really just wanted to do yoga at the same time that I knew other people were doing that same class. It's really powerful. It's really fun. And thank goodness they got their tech up and running and I was able to take class with everyone. It was really sweet. So I really recommend working in a little bit of live yoga, live exercise into your routine at least a few times a week. Okay, so I know you're probably thinking like, hey, I thought you said we were going to talk about self-care that is indulgent. I promise you we're going to get there. I really believe that before we can practice self-care that is luxurious and indulgent, we got to take care of the other shit first. Because if we're sitting in a bubble bath all day, but we know that all the things that we need to do in our regular lives aren't getting done, it's harder to enjoy that bubble bath. So I swear in a moment, we are going to get to things that you're like, yeah, I'm going to chill. We're going to get there. But first, we have to do some other stuff. So make a schedule, eat healthy, get some exercise, get off the freaking internet. That's the next one. Limit your social media time, limit your news time. It is deeply important to stay informed right now. The news is changing very fast, and I have been checking in with the news in the mornings, at lunchtime, and in the evenings. In between those times, I am not watching the news, I'm not reading the headlines, and I'm trying to limit my social media interactions because it becomes all consuming. And if the goal here is to make space in our lives, to find some normalcy, to find some comfort, watching the news all day and getting wrapped up in crazy social media conversations, that's not the way to do it. I do know that social media is kind of tricky because it's the way that we communicate with our friends, it's the way that we communicate with our families. That's great. If you need to mute some people that are driving you crazy, mute them. If you need to delete some friends that are pissing you off, delete them. Do what you need to do to clean up your space so that way when you do go onto social media, you can get the information that you need, you can have the interactions that you want to have, and that's it. Because here's the deal. The people that are posting fake information, the people that are being ridiculous, the pictures that you see of people crowding beaches and doing crazy things that are endangering the lives of others, that's not going to go away. If it were easy for all of that to go away, if it were easy for those sorts of conversations to not be had, they wouldn't be there in the first place. So I really recommend cleaning up your social media, limiting how much time you spend on social media, and not engaging in anything that's going to piss you off. Because here's the deal. The only person that's suffering when you are engaging on social media is you. The people that you want to prove things to, the people whose facts you want to correct, they don't give a shit about what you have to say. So do your own heart the favor. Do your own self the favor and cut those cords. You can just mute those people. Don't worry. They will be there when you are ready to come back. All the craziness in the world will be there for you when you're ready to come back. So just mute them for 30 days and then another 30 days and then another 30 days, as long as you need to keep yourself sane. The same kind of goes for the news. As I mentioned, it's important to check in, but just give yourself some time to not watch the news. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. It's stressful. And there are other things happening in our lives that we can pay attention to. Amidst global crisis, there are great things happening. There are amazing books to be read. There are amazing opportunities for you and your children to have fun together. There are awesome online tutorials that can teach you a new skill. So there is a space here amidst all of this for us to learn something new, to try something new, to reconnect with the self. I keep thinking about this workshop that I went to with Bill Mahoney just this past weekend. It was supposed to be in real life, but it was on Zoom, as everything is. And he talked a lot in that workshop about consciousness starts really big. And then it gets really small into this physical, and in our case, human form. And it's our work to do to get that consciousness out and make it really big again. So that's kind of a simplified explanation. But he's really talking about the expansion of consciousness, how it then contracts into this tiny form, and what he calls it moves into a shell. And I kind of feel like that's what we're doing right now. When we give ourselves the time to go home, to turn off the news, to limit social media, we move inside that shell and we get to do a lot of work in there. We get to move inward, we get to journal, read books, make art, listen to music, watch amazing movies, write amazing stories, whatever it is, plant flowers. We get to do all this work that really nurtures us. And in the process, we grow as individuals. We grow on the inside. And when this pandemic is over, because one day, I don't know when that's going to be, but one day we will have some normal life back again. We get to take all that we learned from this experience and bring it back out into the world and expand that new consciousness that we have. So limiting your social media time, limiting your news time, it gives us a chance to do that inner work. And then we have all this amazing stuff that we learned about ourselves that we get to carry into the world with us and share with others whenever we head back into some sense of normalcy. So it's sort of, to me, it parallels this idea of big consciousness, contracted consciousness, and then we bust out of our homes one day and expand that out into the world again. I do believe that we're about to walk into the world in a few months better people from this. But that's not going to happen if you're stuck on Facebook and if you're stuck on the news all the time. So give yourself the space. And so this is where maybe we move into the more indulgent practices of self-care, is that we do have this time and space now to do this work, to do these things that we love. When you have your daily schedule worked out, when you have it figured out what time you're going to wake up, what time you're going to bed, what your daily rituals are, when your meals are, and how you're going to exercise, now's your time to fit in all the things that you've always wanted to do, all the indulgences that you've been wanting to have time for, maybe now you can do. And now I say this as someone without children. I'm not homeschooling children, so I understand that my perspective might be a little different. However, maybe that means you get a little more time outdoors playing with your children. Maybe that means that you do put your kids to bed and you have an extra 10 or 15 minutes in the evening to journal or read a book or take a bath. So this is a nice time, and I think an important time for us to make space for this indulgent self-care. We're not stuck running from place to place right now like we normally are. So the time that you would say normally spend commuting to work, how can you use that to do something really nourishing for your soul? Maybe that means a meditation practice. Or the time that you would normally spend running your kids to soccer practice, how can you use that to create more connection or do something fun with your family? And I think it goes back to what I was mentioning in the beginning of this episode with Gabby's, when I was mentioning her blog. This is done with intention. This isn't just a bubble bath for the sake of a bubble bath. It's not just, enjoying a glass of wine for the sake of enjoying a glass of wine. What do these acts do for you? How can they feed your soul? And in turn, how can you then project that positive change onto the world? That's what this is really about. Self-care, yes, it's about caring for the self, but it also makes us more readily available to show up for the world. So set intentions with your self-care. Do things that make you feel healthy and balanced and full and nurtured and nourished so you can show up for the rest of the world, so you can feel clear and capable and ready to do the damn thing, whatever that means for you right now. I wish I could give you a lot of really great indulgent self-care practices, but I have to be honest, I'm not a big I don't know. I don't do a lot of self-care like this. And when I do, they're really little. It's things like painting my nails. And I like to do that because it's an opportunity for me to sit still, which is hard to do for me. I have a really hard time sitting still, if you can imagine it. But when my nails are wet, I have to, because I have such a pitta personality and such a type A personality that if my nails get chipped at all, I lose my mind. I have to start all over. So I'd rather just sit still and do nothing for 20 or 30 minutes while they dry. So, that's my form of self-care. You might have your own. So I don't really know what that means for you, but I do think that it's important right now to take really sweet care of ourselves. And I know I've been harping a little bit on doing healthy things, but there's also a time and a place to just indulge in things that are a little bit, quote, naughty. Eat a fucking chocolate chip cookie. Eat two. That doesn't mean you have to eat a dozen. I mean, I might eat a dozen by the time today's over. I'm not gonna lie, I might. But eat a fucking cookie. Eat 2 cookies. Bake cookies with your kids. Become the world's best cake baker and share your recipes with me, right? Do these sorts of things that are fun, that are sweet, but balance it with ways to take care of yourself, because that's what this is all about. If your self-care ritual becomes so freaking rigid that you don't ever enjoy anything, it's not gonna last, right? So have a cookie. Don't forget your meditation practice. Eat a piece of cake. Don't forget to wake up on time tomorrow morning, right? Keep it balanced, keep it healthy, but also enjoy. Last but not least, I also want to mention the importance of staying connected. So I talked a little bit about disconnecting with social media and taking really what is an opportune time to move inward and do some of these nourishing inward practices. But it's also a really important time to stay connected. And I think, first of all, I'm pissed I didn't invent Zoom, and I'm pissed I didn't invest any money in Zoom stock, but I don't even know if they're public, but if they are, I'm pissed I didn't invest in it. But in any case, everyone's been Zoom conferencing all their friends. Set those Zoom dates up. pour yourself a glass of wine, meet your friends online, hang out, and chat. This is a great time for phone calls. This is a great time. I've been thinking about sending my friends some letters, which might be kind of fun, just something to do. A letter is always really sweet to receive in the mail. Just make sure you Lysol that shit before you take it out of your mailbox. You don't know who's touched that thing along the way. Send some text messages, reach out, have fun. If someone's been on your mind for whatever reason, just reach out to them and see how they're doing. They're on your mind for a reason. It helps us stay connected during this time. And it's a good reminder of what the yoga teachings always tell us. We are always connected. We always have been connected and we always will be connected. We don't have to be in the same space to find connection. We can find connection through our breath. We can find connection through our positive thoughts. We can find connection through Zoom calls and texts and emails and letters. So try not to stay isolated. Reach out to your friends. Maybe schedule a yoga class together. There's all these live stream classes happening. Maybe you can all take one at the same time and do it together. And then it'll give you something to talk about for a little bit on the phone or via text message. So stay connected with your people. Enjoy each other's company as best as you can. Okay, so let's recap really quickly here. Number 1, set an intention for your self-care. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What do you hope to get out of it? Then make a routine and stick with it as best as you can. Eat well, get some exercise, limit your social media intake and your news intake. Use that opportunity to do some inner work. Indulge in the sweetness of life. Do things that are just really sweet and stay connected. So again, I know these aren't things none of this is rocket science, but it's easy to forget. So I really hope that you will take some of this to heart and make the most out of your days as best as you can. I know these are difficult times and these are complicated times, and much of this is easier said than done, especially if you are in financial distress, if you are homeschooling your children, if you are a healthcare provider or something. I understand that our lives are very complicated right now, but if we can do a little bit of this, our day-to-day lives might be a little more manageable and we might feel a little bit better. I can't promise you that if you do these things, you're just going to feel amazing and that the quarantine is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to you and that you're going to feel great every day. I can't promise you that. But what we can do is make the most of our days and do the best we can. And hopefully these tips will help you do just that. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. If you have other self-care suggestions, please send them to me. Shoot me an email at rebecca@rebeccawarfield.com. That's REBECCA at REBECCAWARFIELD.com. I didn't realize how long my name was until I just spelled it. But you can send me an email there with your self-care practices, and I can get them up on the next episode or in a blog so that we can share them with the world. As always, you can keep up with the Dharma Drops shenanigans at dharmadropspodcast.com and on Instagram at Dharma Drops Podcast. Don't forget, there's new live stream classes, the new membership is up, there's new blogs up. We have all sorts of stuff happening, and we're starting to get back to some sense of business. I don't want to call it normalcy, but I don't know. We're just getting back to business at some level around here. So stay up to date, stay on the website. I'll see you on Instagram, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Dharma Drops Podcast. Until we meet again next time, guys. Bye.